Good. So we're going live. Ready? Do a dance. 3, 2, 1.
Woo.
It'll go. It's preparing. I always look at my phone because it's it'll like setting up your it takes like.
Are we still doing it?
Oh, we're still doing it. We're still doing it. Here we go. Once it pops up on my feed, I know. Hello, everybody.
Hello, everyone.
It's always on. It's always on like a little bit of a delay, but I was gonna double check it because I have started talking before. There we go. We are live. Okay, thank you. And it's Greg Pekarsky's birthday today. That just came up on my timeline, which has nothing to do with what we're talking about. But happy birthday, Greg. No, hey, welcome everybody. This is the 48th. I can't believe it. 48th Real Producers Jam Session. And we got a great cast. It's great weather, great lineup, as you can see from the text of the copy right there. And we're gonna start rocking out because realtors are busy, the market's insane, the weather's nice, vaccinations are happening, and it's just a great time to collaborate and talk shop. I can't wait until CDC sort of puts the stamp of approval to have large events again, but obviously, you know, we want to be safe. We always have to. It's better to err on the side of caution than go too far because you can't back up. It's sort of like the measure twice, cut once philosophy. So we have a great lineup. We've been through a lot this year. I mean, I would attest to say at 1 year at this point, end of April, we didn't know what the heck we were doing. There was a lot of uncertainty out there. There were a lot of new vocabulary words that were implemented into our daily lives. Unprecedented, be safe and healthy and all that fun stuff. But we have prevailed, and I'm very blessed just to work with great entrepreneurs because it kept me going. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to have the realtors introduce themselves just so we can get in the meat and potatoes of this. Then I'll have the partners introduce themselves, and then we're going to start jamming. So that being said, Sheila, why don't you go ahead and kick us off?
Thanks, Andy. Thanks for having us. I'm Sheila Dantzler. I'm with Jameson Sotheby's. I've been a broker for almost 16 years.
Hi, everyone. I'm Maggie Baczkowski. I'm with That Properties, have been selling real estate since 2007 into 2006. And thank you, Andy, and thank you guys for having me here today.
Hi, guys. Good morning. I'm Catherine Holbrook. I am with AmeriCorp Real Estate, Matt Laracy's team. I have been selling real estate for like 13 years now. So yeah, thank you for having us.
I'm Lalez, Compass. I've been selling real estate for about 10 years, and thank you, Andy, for having me again.
I'm Michael Rosenblum with Berkshire Hathaway, and I've been selling real estate since 2003.
Great. And one thing I will say, Michael Mazek, Alex Margulis, you guys do not know this, but this, people reach out to me all the time. Hey, do you guys have a digital version of the magazine? And I say, of course we do. It's, you know, what year is it? It's 2021. But this is a way, it's not public. We pride ourselves, it's a private publication. It just goes to the top 500 producing realtors in Chicago proper, meaning in 606 zip codes. That's all what we count. So it's really designed to connect the locality of those agents and just people who are doing the most of the production in the city. So currently it's free to download. There's a little sneak peek of our May cover right there. We did a whole mother-daughter teams. It puts a big smile on my face when you see it. But the app was actually supposed to be a end of this year project, but because with the pandemic and all the events being on pause for a little bit, we launched the app early. And the reason I was able to do that, I get a lot of credit and love for the, you know, and accolades just for our platform, but I literally cannot do what I do without our partners. And so I want to give Alex and Michael just a chance to introduce themselves and just add value to this. And it's like, realtors are used to being hounded by vendors. That doesn't happen with our platform. People understand the more that they're in front of the people that they want to work with, the better. It's kind of like when realtors farm a certain sphere. They do business right. It's just when you stay top of mind, great things happen, just in business and in life. So let's see here, Michael, why don't you go first, and then Alex, and then we'll start rocking out.
Yeah, absolutely. My name is Mike Mazek. I'm a real estate attorney, and I've had my own practice since 2009. We do transactions as well as real estate litigation, some estate planning, probate, and property tax appeals.
And my name is Alex Margulis. I'm with CrossCountry Mortgage, a residential lender. I've been doing this since 2001.
Awesome. Well, I think you actually are the most tenured, I believe, on this, Alex. So
I think so
20
too.
years. Is that you hit the double decade mark?
Yes, yeah, it's scary, but yes.
Awesome, man. Well, hey, let's start jamming. Let's face it, you guys aren't here to me blab and give introductory comments and drone on. So, but what's out there? What do you feel would be the most productive to talk about? Mr. Rosenblum, I think when we were sort of pregame and you had a good talking point. So why don't you kick us off with that, my friend?
I said we should talk about Chicago and break it down into neighborhoods. If we segment the market, we're going to be able to give the best information, because what's happening in the Gold Coast isn't happening in Bronzeville, which isn't happening in Mayfair, Portage Park. So I think each of us represent a lot of different neighborhoods and can speak to them rather than make blanketed statements. So I think Sheila should tell us about Bronzeville. No, seriously, I so want to hear, because it's a groovy area. There's so much commerce, right? There's so much been put into that area. I've had clients that have asked about Bronzeville. I mean, it's hip and groovy.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's a, listen, it was hit hard by the recession. That was almost 10 years ago, but it's rebounded really, really well. There's a ton of new construction, single family homes that have flown off the market in the last couple of years. I mean, to the point where I looked for a client the other day and there were just a handful. So I think a lot of people realize that from the proximity to the lake, it's a lakefront community. There are 3 different beach access from 31st and Oakwood and 41st, 47th. You can get a brand new single family home for the fraction of the cost that you can get in Lincoln Park, around 600,000-700,000. People want space. They want a home office. They want a gym. They want, a yard and all of that. So it's a great market. And even the first time buyer condo market is doing really well. As I was telling on the pre-call, I'm, battling multiple offer situations, and it's really tough for, we do this all the time, but for a lot of our first time buyers, I don't know about you guys, they're getting really discouraged, not just in Bronzeville, but I've tried to find, Jefferson Park, 2 flats, nothing.
Sheila, do you guys do
really good West Lip condos? It's tough. So I'm trying to keep them encouraged. On the list side, it's great, but the buy side for my clients, I feel like I'm beat up, honestly.
Sheila, do you guys do a lot of stuff off market down there? Like, do you guys have a lot of like pre-market or pocket stuff as well?
Yeah, we do. I actually just sold one the other day. It was a, duplex in Bronzeville, only 4 years old, beautiful. The neighbor told her friend that I was going to list, and the lady who came had missed out on 3 situations, and she wrote it on the spot over asking. I didn't even put it in PL, I don't see a lot in our market like Bronzeville, Southside, and the PLN, but kind of just, word of mouth. But yeah, so that's
because I feel like when I'm looking through the PLN now or off market, all the stuff that's in PLN is already under contract as well.
Yep.
I mean, I don't think we want to play favorites to any particular broker, but I think Catherine raised an interesting point when she just said, do you have a lot of, off-market stuff? I think it helps brokers to know that if there's a particular broker that's selling a lot of a particular building or neighborhood, pick up the phone and call that person, because chances are they probably have something in their pocket that they can lift out for you. And I think that doesn't happen often enough. I think brokers need to absolutely capitalize. It's not like, again, we want to play favorites, but call people that do a lot of business in a particular area.
Yeah, I do that. If I have a client looking in a certain building and I know there's a broker that either lives in the building or sells a lot in the building, I always call them and see if they have anything coming up. I mean, usually it's just timing that people don't put things on the market. So like getting in there before.
Not that I want to be a rabbi, but sharing is caring.
No, I agree with you. And it
Win-win
worked.
for everyone.
It worked.
Everyone share.
Yeah, I agree.
I think that's particularly true, especially now. So I do primarily stuff west of the highway. So that's like Logan Square, Wicker Park, Bucktown, et cetera. And I have a lot of those clients that are in like the 2-3 bedroom market. And there's maybe 3 or 4 brokers who handle almost all of the new construction. And like having them on speed dial, be like, hey, what do you have coming up that's going to be delivering in, at this point, August, September, October. And then, not being afraid of getting, trying to explain the pre-construction process to your buyers. Maybe that isn't what they were originally looking for, but that's the inventory that's coming down the pipeline and you get to be the first to check it out.
Are you seeing a lot of new construction coming up?
Yeah, I think it's, you have stuff, yes, it's coming on. I would actually argue not as much as usual, and that might be because it's getting snatched up faster now than it normally has been. But yeah, there's enough. The problem is that, when your buyers hear a January or February delivery, they might not be interested anymore.
And with some builders, you have to add like 2 more months onto that too.
Exactly right.
Well, Maggie and I can talk about River North and the Gold Coast and Streeterville because we both work that market pretty heavily. And I can tell you what's going on in, River North. People sometimes say River North, but there are 3 sections, as we all know, to River North: the Cathedral District, the Gallery District, and the Kingsbury Park District. And those are all acting differently. Wouldn't you agree, Maggie? I mean, I think the Cathedral District, 55 Erie, what's going on there is somewhat different to where like Kingsbury Park, the Montgomery over at 500 West Superior. Are you seeing that?
Yeah, I think Streeterville, kind of like you're talking about, general kind of high rises in the Gold Coast and River North. I think some of the higher end markets, a lot of my clients have second and third homes and aren't here. And there's, in some buildings, as you know, a glut of inventory. And so market times are increasing. I believe the city will come back when culture comes back, when people come back to the office, when they don't feel like big anchor stores are leaving Michigan Ave. The whole being closed, a lot of, Michael, and I'm sure for you and all of us, have clients that are out of town that are either have in towns or sort of waiting to come back when things open. It will open. I'm very excited about our city. I think we'll get there. But right now, everything online is so important. I tell my clients, it's okay to list. You just have to be perfect when you list your property online, because that's everyone's first showing right now. They are seeing you from wherever they are. And eventually, when people feel like they're going to come back, I think the floodgates are going to open. Here's the interesting part of this, is that this is an epic buying opportunity. So we're not going to see prices like this, I don't believe, Michael, and I would love to hear your opinion and all of you guys. The $1 million+ condos that are kind of in this neighborhood, I think the buying opportunity is here in a way that hasn't been since the recession that we had. I think this is a great time to come in and try and gobble up some downtown real estate right now. So that's my opinion. I think that it's definitely a buyer's market. I do think that will switch. I'm optimistic. I'd like to think within a year or so, but the super high end stuff, prices have come down and market times are longer, but they are selling. They're selling, and the market buyers are savvy, but I think that there are a lot of deals to be had. Right.
I agree with you 100%. So, sort of tagging on to your comments, Water Tower, for instance, which I work very heavily and live in the building, happens to be really on fire right now. We've done more transactions in that building than were done in the years of 2019 and 2020 combined. So downtown is absolutely, when we talk about downtown, I mean, Gold Coast, Streeterville, and River North specifically, those 3 areas, Lakeshore East, we could include sort of the Loop, but
Loop, yeah.
I'm just talking about specifically Gold Coast, River North, and Streeterville. Incredible buys because the supply levels are so high. and the buyer demand is a little lower. So people are getting great deals. We're not seeing multiple offers. We're not seeing price appreciation. We're not seeing, people drop their contingencies because there's a great amount of opportunity. But there is movement because there are people out there saying, this is an incredible time to buy. I mean, the great thing is, if you think about what the costs are when you add up, like if someone's doing a mortgage, right, Alex, and you want to know what the PITA is, that is basically less expensive than somebody paying rent in some of these buildings. So why not take that golden opportunity and say to your client, here's an incredible time to buy. I agree with you, Maggie. The prices are down to where they were when we had that sort of, Q4 2008 debacle, and we saw like what happened in 2009 and 10 and 11. But if you look at the historic graphs of Chicago, which I study, going back to the 1980s, every 5 to 7 years, there was an absolute change in the markets. It was either a buyer's market or a seller's market. And right now, it's definitely a buyer's market in the specific areas we're talking about of the neighborhoods of the Gold Coast, Streeterville, and River North. And let's face it, Chicago is the third largest populated city. And hey, I don't want to go on and pontificate here, so I'll just wrap myself up. But in short, I just want to say that we're the third largest populated city. We have people coming and going every day. People need to buy and sell. So the market is fluid. Maybe if we were a different Midwest city, it would be different. And we're certainly not a coastal city, so our prices are really cheap here in Chicago. But the idea is, this is a huge opportunity for people who want a downtown apartment. And guess what? Everything is coming back. So therefore, people are getting vaccinated. People are going to want to enjoy the downtown, the various venues, the concerts, everything. So this is a time to say to your clients, buy it, hold it, redo it. Because guess what? In 2 or 3 years, you're going to flip it and make a big profit like the people who bought in 2009 and 10.
Staying on the topic for just one more second here, Michael, I'll throw it back to you, and I guess Maggie and even Catherine. I don't do a ton of stuff in Gold Coast, Streeterville, et cetera. But when you have sellers who are, if they own luxury property, we're assuming they're relatively financially savvy, keeping their eye on the real estate market, and they're seeing what's happening nationally or even in other parts of Chicago. When you're having these conversations with your sellers and telling them that is, we'll use the word counterintuitive to what they've been seeing, how are those conversations going with them? Explaining to them that it's actually a buyer's market in their building and in their neighborhood, when everywhere else they could characterize it as the exact opposite.
I'm definitely seeing buyers be more aware of the fact that there are deals to be had. And a lot of it, I've recently had a lot more buyers who are driven by the fact that remote work is shifting back a little bit, and that they may have to be in close proximity to the loop or West Loop or South Loop. And so I've certainly seen, that to your point, there are buyers who are aware of how good of a deal it is in some buildings, and the fact that they may have to be in close proximity to work again is driving some of it.
Yeah, I agree. I think traffic's back. And I think with most of these sellers too, especially in the markets like the Gold Coast, Streeterville, I think people understand, people were here the last year, they understand COVID, they understand, their amenities have been closed down the last year. So, I think when you're talking to some of these sellers about prices and stuff, I think they're, for the most part, usually pretty realistic and get it.
And it's not about money. Sorry, at a certain point. It becomes about it becomes about lifestyle and choices. So, I actually did a podcast. How do you sell in a down market? How do you sell in this market? You think of it, you can't look at it, in my opinion, this is just me and my conversations that I have with my clients. What did your home give you? You spent time here, you loved it, you enjoyed it. It was generally a consumption-based purchase, and you have to let it go. The market will determine what the price is. And I would say oftentimes in those markets, people understand that. They understand, and they don't want to hold on to this asset. They'd rather let go of it than try and get X amount out. And I think if people have, I need X, those are sellers that I don't think I can work with, because no one can guarantee you X in this market. So having X and drawing a line in the sand isn't useful. I would be concerned about that property really sitting stagnant and staying still. You need to remain fluid.
Yeah, agreed. And especially the sellers that are like, I put this into it and this, it's like, you're just sometimes not going to get, that back. That was for you and, your own enjoyment with the property.
My big ticket is about education, and going back to Ben and what you just asked, and then rolling to the top of the conversation. I think you're only as strong as your weakest link. And it's important for every broker that becomes a broker of record for a client to make sure that they educate their client. And education is important because if people have knowledge, then they can make the best decision. And the problem is sometimes, we as brokers just think that we take it for granted that somebody's going to understand this. It's our responsibility to say, you can't always look at the headlines. In a past life, literally, I was in the media for 23 years. I know how that works. It's the sensationalism of a story. But, when somebody, blankets a statement in Cranes or in the Tribune or the Wall Street Journal and says, Chicago's on fire, sales are up. Are they talking about Lincoln Park or Lyle? Are they talking about Lake Forest? Where are we talking about? And I think that it's really important. And that's the problem with regards to, like, for instance, selling these high rises downtown and having my seller say, well, but why? Everyone else is like getting multiple offers. And I have to explain, yeah, if you're a 3-flat or a 6-flat or a single family home, and if you're in this neighborhood or that neighborhood, you're getting it. But going back to Maggie B's point about the fact that what did your property do for you and how did you enjoy it? Because it's like, if I want to buy Apple stock at $25 a share, guess what? That train already left the station. It's not happening. So if you want to sell your property today, then you need to fit into the market where the market says the pricing is. I mean, let's face it, we only sell the market. We don't create it. It's our buyers collectively that create the market, right? So on that point, when they collectively create, that means that you can only raise the price of a property in a building if one or two things have happened. One, they have completely renovated it and it's like the prettiest girl or the most handsome boy in town, then you're going to get an incredible price. The other thing is that if there's no inventory talks all the time. It's only when inventory diminishes, okay, then we can increase the price point. Otherwise, if there's so much in a building that's for sale, guess what? There's no way you're going to get that number. That's happening right now. I'm working with somebody at 130 Garland, and unfortunately, they want a specific unit. And if you look at the comps, it's just not there. The people that are trying to sell their places are unrealistic. It's not going to comp. They're not there. They're upset. They're angry, and I appreciate that. Okay, so then you either have two choices, as Maggie was saying. You either take yourself off the market, or you wait for the market to rise up to you. Or the third thing, you sell where the market says this is the data and this is what you're going to be able to do. Because if you were the only seller in the building, it would be a different price point. But when you're one among 7 or 8 or 10 or 13, you can't. And it's not the broker's fault.
I think we've all kind of touched on it, but one of my broken record statements to my team is, like, when you're in these scenarios, bury your clients in data, show them what happened in 19, show them what happened. Obviously 20 doesn't matter anymore, but like showing how long other stuff takes to go under contract, what market time is, and just, not hammer them, but, we can't make up these charts. Like, why do you think that your product is going to perform differently than these other hundreds of data points?
I agree.
I think the interesting thing is that what is it going to do, for instance, for a seller? We want to be upbeat here. For a seller to take a loss is a difficult thing. If you or I or any other broker had to take a loss on their property, it would be painful. But the idea is, like Maggie, what did you get from the property? And when we sell your property, what's going to be the value of your life and how is that going to affect your life? So you sell the property, it's a loss. It's like getting in a bad investment. And unfortunately, now you have the money to try to make it into a good investment. So, take the negative and turn it into a positive. And I understand, ideology is, in theory, it might be, easy to grasp, but, in reality, it's more difficult. But I think that, you as we as brokers need to just sort of be sensitive, but explanatory in the process with our clients. I mean, the idea is it's not horrible. The idea is that you're selling your place for a reason, but you're going to move on. And for sellers that lose money, guess what? If they're rebuying in this market a different place, then they're gaining depending upon, where they're buying. So if you're selling in River North at a loss and you're buying a larger apartment in River North, then you're picking it up. So it's a wash. Okay. We can't say that if, we're going to the suburbs per se. I understand that.
I think speaking on inventory and pricing and kind of like, the market setting itself, and Alex can probably also speak to this. I've had 3 appraisal issues in the last 30 days. And it's so frustrating because there is no inventory. And then you go over asking and, make all these concessions. And one of them we were able to work out, but it was $30,000 under. Another one was just like a minimal $5,000 under, but, the buyer was tapped, they just could not make up the difference. And it's hard to explain both to buyer and the seller on, why the appraisals are like that. Alex, I'm sure you can give more context to that, but it's really frustrating.
To add color to this just happened to me last night. I saw an email coming through after I left the office. A buyer in the suburbs, western suburbs, low 400s contract price. The appraisal came in at 375. That's a big difference. I'm not sure what happened there. I haven't had the conversation with the realtor yet on the buy side, but we will be doing that as soon as I'm jumping off of this call. But I haven't seen that egregious of a difference there. There are a lot of concerns with appraisals because, and you guys can speak to this, when you're submitting offers with these multiple bids and you're nervous on how it's going to play out because we're in this weird market on the buy side. I haven't had bad experiences, knock on wood, so far in the city. But it seems like the suburbs are even more competitive for the buyers.
I was going to say, I had recently on the list side in the last 3 weeks, 3 appraisals come in under, and the appraisers, they reach out, you give them comps, but I feel like all 3 of the appraisers, they kind of, and they're all nice, but kind of feel like their hands are behind their back. So I don't know, are they getting pushback? Do they have people reviewing these more, than usual with the market kind of where it's at now? I feel like.
Nothing out of the ordinary, Catherine. I mean, typical reviews, but I don't think the underwriters are scrutinizing it because it is a weirder market than normal, though.
Yeah. But that's not fun when you're on the list.
No, I know.
This kind of raises the point of deal structure. So I'm kind of the counterpoint. I think Sheila might be in the same boat. I'm the counterpoint to what Maggie, Catherine, and Michael have kind of been talking about with these the high end high-rise markets. A lot of times, especially right now, I work with a lot of buyers and we're going into these multiple offer scenarios, and the seller and listing agent want to know what's going to happen when and if the appraisal comes in low. And we're having that conversation during negotiations. And I've had to waive appraisal contingency and have to have this weird conversation with the buyers.
That makes me so nervous.
I discuss mortgage contingency. Be like, hey, you're protected, right? But then I have to go into this added layer of, okay, within your mortgage contingency, there's also this thing called an appraisal contingency. And to get the deal, I want to waive it, but you have to be ready to cover this spread. And it's really difficult. And I haven't gotten bitten yet by an appraisal, but welcome to, you have point, counterpoint. We're the counterpoint of it is, I have not been in a situation where it hasn't been multiple offer on either buyer side or list side since, it hasn't been that long, but like since February. So
in some ways, I really, on the legal side of things, I do like when that gets squared away early on. I like it when that conversation takes place and the client is aware and we know exactly, maybe there's a floor on the appraisal contingency waiver, but at least, in that kind of a scenario, it's much better than perhaps the opposite, which is waiting 3-4 weeks into the transaction to find out that, we're not going to appraise out, and perhaps the buyer doesn't have the money to make up the difference. So having those conversations up front, Ben, is great. I think that's a positive thing, because right now it's wild and there's no way to predict. There's certainly probably, we've all had transactions where we thought it wouldn't appraise out and it did, and then vice versa.
Yep. Agreed.
I think it depends on the appraiser too. Like sometimes you see somebody come from the suburbs, they're like asking you where to park. You're like, oh no, this is not going to go good. So when you do drop mortgage contingencies, do you guys leave like an open contingency for being able to get a second appraisal ever?
a lot of this, I think, is relationship driven.
Yeah.
The other listing agent be like, hey,
Absolutely.
and this is the conversation. It's like, hey, Catherine, in the event that appraisal comes back low, yes, we waive the appraisal contingency, but Catherine, you and I are going to work together.
Yeah.
And fight the
Switch lenders or
appraisal.
something.
Yeah. And in the event that we can't work it out, yeah, we'll come up with the cash, but we're going to work together on this. Right.
Mhm.
And, you know, and that's why relationships are more important than one of my favorite sayings is like your relationship with other brokers.
Yeah.
Is more important than the relationship with your clients. And in years past, I didn't really recognize that, but now I do.
Yep.
But that.
No, I absolutely agree with that. I mean, I'll tell my clients, you know, that too. Like, I know this client, you know, knows how to talk to, or this agent knows how to talk to his clients. Like, they'll be reasonable. I mean, it's funny how many different times, like, you go under contract, it's multiple offers, somebody puts in an offer, it's the best offer, and then once they get it accepted, you never hear from that agent again. So it definitely speaks a lot, I think, to know the other agent on the other side of a transaction.
But going back to deal structures, let's say a property comes on the market today. I have a basic deal, like we have to go as is. We have to go at least or over list price. I would like to consider, you know, a very favorable, I've been leaving close date just completely blank or writing in seller's choice. And it's really interesting. I didn't expect to have conversations with people who are experiencing the exact opposite of what I'm experiencing right now, but that's all day, every day. We'll just say West
Ben,
Highway
I just did that too. We have to do a lease back to, you choose, you tell us how long you need to stay in the property because they can't find a house because, you know, they're competing and they have a home sale contingency with, you know, X date. So I agree that you have to be super creative and what the seller wants. And
it's interesting, going to Michael Mazek for a second. We all know how much lawyers hate rent backs and post and pre-close
during a time where there's no evictions. What's that? I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, during a time where there's no eviction, there's no, you know, if that person just stays, they stay, you know.
That's true.
It's very dangerous. Certainly, I hate to see it, but if that's the only way the client can get that property, that's a great leverage point, right? Because sellers do have to spend, there's a lot of stress to get everything moved out. And especially if there's, you know, if that person's been there for a long time. There are plenty of people who we've represented in the last few months who have lived at the property for 20, 30, 40 years. You know, requiring that person to sell a place in the morning and buy a place in the afternoon in a seller's market is just not going to happen. Most of the time they are getting rent backs.
To continue this point, I was interested in the pre-call. It's just like, wow, this is really going to be a point counterpoint. The stuff that I'm kind of dealing with right now is I have buyers and they're asking me the opposite question. Should I wait until the winter, until things quiet down? And those are the conversations I'm having. And it's really very difficult because we don't, you know, west of the highway, we'll just use that. We don't know when something's going to give. And for me to say, yeah, wait until winter has been, a challenge, or waiting until next spring is also a challenge. I'm curious to hear what you guys have to say if you were in my shoes, though you're not.
I don't think it's going to change personally. And the reason why is if you go back, the difference between what happened last year and during the economic downturn, there's a huge difference. If you wanted to go buy a house or a car, you could go in and do that. But we had this shutdown where people weren't moving about. Everything came to a halt. It was like a dam. Think of a river. It was dammed up. And so then all of a sudden, when finally it opened up, you had all these floodgates. So you didn't have the whole cyclical process of properties coming on, going off, coming on, going off. So all of a sudden, you had this huge pent up demand and or supply. And then everything was affected from there. So I think that you're just going to see this continuous movement for a while until a lot of the inventory is absorbed. Because economically, look at the fact that we just discussed, maybe 20 minutes ago, the fact that it's cheaper to buy than it is to rent. So, it opens the market. And I think that, you have sort of an ideology change with regards to people that thought, you know what, I want to live in a condo for 5 years. And then after I have my first kid, I'm going to go get a house. People have bypassed that step. I mean, this whole COVID situation has changed how people sort of work from home or work, from their office, or how they're going back to their office. And I think people are sort of rethinking their space. It's kind of like, go back to after World War II when people left cities because of the creation of suburbs. It's a natural evolution. We're in a natural evolution. This is how it's going to be. This is the new pathway. This is the new frontier. And it's a dynamic and exciting change if you think about it. It's really exciting. And so I think it's going to continue. And, Ben, in the areas you're talking about, yeah, more new construction. Old places are going to come down, new places are going to come up. We don't have that luxury, do we, Maggie B? Because most of the area in the Gold Coast, Streeterville, and River North, it's all mature. There's no land,
Yeah,
Michael-
South and West are always big growth areas. The South and West are those are where the expansive, I think, growing opportunities of neighborhoods have emerged and changed over. If you think about, what's curious is, offices aren't even open and people are getting settled. So I just think it's going to continue to ramp up. It's hard to determine when a market's going to shift. That's just, nobody knows. I mean, so there's so many factors in there. And so I that's a philosophical one that's hard to get people to wait. And I get the same thing. Should we just wait to go on the market? Should we go here? Should we do that? And there's so many situations that can go into that. I think that question, I think it depends on the person's lifestyle, job, goals. I think that those are really individual calls, and it's hard to make a general statement. And I think also as taxes rise, it caps a level at which the high-end market can grow. And then you've got these emerging markets that tend to appreciate, whereas the high-end markets tend to come down under those situations. So I think that there's this, economic equilibrium sort of, or polar opposites with the high end and then the emerging market where the values are had and there's appreciation. High end market is somewhat capped because of, taxes, which is a whole other issue I don't want to divert us to, but that has been the trend over the past few years that I've seen. So I know my answer is a little all over the place, but I think it's really nuanced.
And that supply level is very high. Between the 2 to 5 million market in River North, Gold Coast, and Streeterville, it's high. There's a huge supply. Anybody can do an absorption calculation and see. There's almost like 5 years of inventory. So it's going to take time for all of that to dissipate and go off the market in order to be able to rise. But can people sell at a high in these particular neighborhoods? 100%. I was selling, during the economic downturn, for instance, the Montgomery, I was selling units at higher prices and people are like, how are you getting it? I'm like, come into the property, look at it. It has an incredible kitchen. It has magnificent bathrooms. So you have to pay for that. Here's the property at X and this is what it looks like. Now go ahead and do the transformation, the renovation, and people deserve to pay, otherwise good. Buy a dump and then go figure out how to fix it up. People don't realize, the value. Do you pay more do you pay more for something, whether it's a single family home or a high rise? Absolutely, when it's done really well, because here's the thing, the interest rates, right? Alex, you can talk about this, are really, really low. So why would you want to take a couple $100,000 or $100,000 or any kind of amount of cash out of an asset that's making more money when you can basically buy something? And so maybe you pay 50 or 60,000 or $100,000 more, but your interest rate is so low that if you look at the spread, you don't want to touch your cash because you're making money on that money. So you might as well go ahead and buy it at the low interest rate. You pay a little more, you're not going to live there. It's still fresh. And then people don't understand the whole renovation process. The whole idea of how long does it take? What's my carrying costs? Supplies are up. I was talking, a little shout out to my friend Danny Glick. We were talking about new construction prices. The cost of lumber is almost doubled because of the shutdown. Everything wasn't manufactured. So now you have all these costs. People don't realize to redo a kitchen, to redo a bathroom, it's expensive. And a couple people.
Yeah, and Michael, like in some of these buildings too, getting it approved with the management, elevators, the hours you can work. You're looking sometimes at a good amount of time to renovate places.
Brilliant statement, Catherine. It's true. And I know you talk about that with clients all the time, you and your team, because it's important that consumers get educated. They think, oh, it's easy. It's not.
It's not.
It's easy in a single family house where your contractor can pull his van up and load and do everything. But you start working in high rises anywhere in the city.
Yeah. You're turning off water for, 60 floors. That's not the easiest thing sometimes when you're renovating. So
I wanted to touch upon the point Ben brought up originally, kind of another counterpoint to what we were just discussing with, the listing agents problems in the River North or downtown area. But for Ben, for Sheila, where the buyers are, having a hard time, I wanted to see, well, I'll tell you from my perspective as a lender, because I see only the buyers, and most of the people that I'm coming across with are having a hard time finding properties. So writing a ton of offers, spending all this time running around ragged right now, right? You guys are getting frustrated and tired, and your per hour rate is going down dramatically right now. How are you setting up expectations for your buyers, first-time buyers? Because probably there's more buyers who are first-time buyers than $2 to $5 million buyers or sellers right now. So maybe we can talk a little bit more about that, because it seems like that might be even more relevant for the majority of the folks.
Well, for me, and Alex, this, they start the conversation of, this is my budget. I really don't want to go above X. And we show X and they lose out. And then I just start having the conversation of, talk to your lender about how much more is it going to cost you per month to go $10,000 more or $20,000 more. I know your budget is $400, but if it's $450, the taxes are different. The assessments could be different. Like, don't miss out on a property for $56 a month. So that really helps set them like, okay, it's not just the purchase price, it's really your affordability factor per month. And that varies so greatly on the condo association, the taxes, the, whatever you're looking at. That's definitely helped. And then also just them being prepared to make a decision. Like, 100%. This is not the market where your parents have to come to see it and your best friend and I want to bring the contractor and all of that. It's like, no. If you like it, we're writing it and that's it. Once that happens the first time and they miss out, then they know, like, I got to jump on it. And I tell them, like, you're a grown up. Like, you have a great job. You've, made a lot of great decisions up until this point. You've saved money. I appreciate that somebody else may want, to give their opinion. They can see it during the inspection. Like, this is not, we have no time to waste on things like that.
Every minute
So
counts.
that also has, definitely helped. And also putting your best foot forward. This is not the market to, at least in, a lot of the markets that I work in, this is not the market to be, negotiating price and closing costs, et cetera, et cetera. But then sometimes you get slam dunks. I got a referral from a friend of mine in DC, and he knew exactly the building that he wanted to buy in on Monroe, right down in the loop. And we saw it. We put in a low offer and the seller signed it like in 2 hours. Like, that's it. You know what I mean? So,
But that was a high-rise condo you're talking
that was
about.
a high-rise
Yeah.
condo. With,
Back to what Michael and Maggie were
exactly,
talking about.
25 unit, right? 25 units
Take
in
it
the
and run.
building for sale.
Right, it was a mid-rise, right. No, it goes back to the idea of direct and educate your clients. I mean, listen, people hire us for a reason. If otherwise they'd go to somebody else. So, use your competitive edge. I mean, I think that's what's really important. It's people come to us. They want direction. They want education.
Yeah.
Hopefully they like our personalities. Otherwise, I don't work with a lot of buyers. That's just not my model. I've always been a huge listing agent. So I work with buyers that are referred to me, but I don't really take online buyers. I don't.
I'll take your buyers, Michael, if you want. Shoot them my way. Don't
No,
worry.
but I'm just saying that's how my model works. Everyone's different. I don't do any online kind of advertising or searching or scrubbing or any of that for buyers. I work with buyers that are just referrals. So, the bulk of my volume each year is really just listings. And, of course, last year, was a good year, but it wasn't a great year for us. But that's because we have, 51 listings with these, heavy price tags like Maggie B. Smile, Maggie B. You got that heavy price tag too, right? It's crazy, wasn't it last year? I think you and I talked a few times. It was crazy with this high-end market. Everyone thinks, oh God, I wish I had these $3 million listings. I mean, it's like not necessary. Now it's moving, but I'm just saying the last few years, it was horrible.
Yeah. Just long market times.
Yeah.
That's the hard part, I think, for sellers is just the market time. And then even if you have a price, even if you decrease the price, that doesn't move the needle.
No.
And that is the whole thing that I think is, we're getting back to your point, Michael, about education and what we're all talking about here is even if you're priced right, the absorption rate can still be a year. And that's the part that I think is really hard to reconcile, because I think any fix has always been to reduce the price. And certainly you can keep reducing. Price will ultimately get there. But that's the nuance in the luxury market, right? It's, yes, you can dump your property if you need to dump your property always, but it's figuring out where is that price without going too low, and even so, reducing it if there aren't buyers, your price isn't going to go. And it's not to be doomsday about it. Certainly the right price will sell it, but there was a certain time period there where even no matter what you were priced, people were not there. And I think that was the frustrating part, to really say, I don't know if we do this price reduction, how much traction you're going to get. And you have to remain fluid. It's really having those conversations in advance about here's what to expect. Checking in, remaining fluid. It's very touchy. A new sale, waiting, can set a new, comp. All these things can take place along the way. So I think remaining fluid and there is light at the end of the tunnel. I am excited to see, Catherine, like you were saying, more traffic. I never thought I'd be so happy to see traffic.
Yeah, right.
Yes, there's traffic.
Yeah. Do you guys find like getting creative in some of these like high-rise markets, like offering like either like a broker's incentive or like paying for, 6 months, let's say, like of assessments? Do you find that ever helps at all with kind of selling some of these more high-end listings?
I don't personally. And
Yeah.
you know what, to touch on sort of the light at the end of the tunnel, your phrase there, Maggie, there is light at the end of the tunnel. We are actually moving. I mean, in Water Tower, like I said, at the top of the conversation, I mean, there's been about 13 transactions. I mean, so there is definite movement. I don't think that incentivizes people necessarily, Catherine. I think if somebody wants to live in that environment, they're going to go ahead and do it, whether you give them 6 months or not.
Yeah, regardless.
In the old days, people would say, I'll give you a $5,000 bonus if I get a contract by a certain date. Then that gets into the moral and ethical issue. Is your broker just pushing you that way because they want that money? Or like in those cases, we've given back that money to our clients,
Yeah.
as an incentive to say, hey, if you want to buy this, because I feel ethically that's just not right.
Yeah.
Catherine, I think incentives can work in this environment. I think, and I agree, Michael, what you're talking about, kind of the ethical component, but I think if you know that there's a buyer that's competing against you in a different property, and if your seller wants to offer an incentive, obviously we have to offer it to everybody. I think that's the time, if they're saying we'll cover your closing costs or pay assessments, I think that's the time to have the conversation. But I don't think blanket in the buyers coming in, I think potentially they're compelled to that, but I think in the higher end markets, it's not always.
It's not about like a few $1,000s.
Yeah. It's just about the feeling and do they like the home?
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting. At
question.
Water Tower, people are talking about the fact that Macys left Water Tower, and is that a negative?
They were leaving anyways, right?
Yeah, but it's not a negative. It's not a negative. Because guess what? Years ago, Magnin left. And so did Bonwit Teller. Stores are closing. I mean, people
Marshall Fields,
that, malls are a thing of the past. It's called online now. That's your mall. The internet is your mall, and it's just the transformation. It's no different than the creation of department stores in the late 1800s and early 1900s. Can you imagine all the mom and pop shops that got annoyed that, all of these products were being umbrellaed under one storefront? And then, of course, what about 123 Main Street downtown when the stores left because they started to go to the suburbs, to suburban malls and whatnot? So it's just the evolution. It's fine. You know what? They're going to rebatch. Water Tower's fine. I mean, they still have stores, but the point is that they'll use the building in a different way. But it's still an incredible neighborhood with the lakefront, the Museum of Contemporary Art. I mean, there's so many positives. It's like people just need to stop focusing on a negative and realize why they live in Chicago. I mean, it's an incredible city. It's unbelievable. It has so much to offer. It's the third largest city. Are you kidding? I'm going to go put my pom-poms on and go out to Chicago and Michigan Avenue today. No, seriously, it's incredible. It's absolutely positively incredible. It really is.
Hey, let's pause really fast. We're gonna get a little screenshot here, okay? And with everybody smiling, okay, and I will frame it like this. Please do not be like my children and like smile for 1 second, then stop. So the rule is when you see me stop smiling, then you stop smiling. Okay, you ready? We gotta get the little product placement in here. 1, 2, 3. I think we might have nailed that in the first try. It's a winner. All right, cool. Well, we're up. I mean, we got about 6, 7, maybe 8 minutes ish. What are some other? I mean, we've talked about expectations. We've talked, Catherine. I like your point of like the incentive stuff, and I agree. I mean, I think it's, Maggie, with what you said in response to that. I mean, if it's like a high end luxury, it's like that's not a deciding factor. But I think in some scenarios, that it does work. Also, too, Catherine, which brokerage did you say you were with? I don't think I'd heard of. Yeah.
Oh, AmeriCorp.
Yeah. Was it Lalez or somebody?
Yeah.
Are they new? Or I don't.
I was like,
are they? I'm trying to keep a straight face. Sorry. I should have did that.
I'm like, I think he's kidding, right?
I should have done that before.
I think it would be
definitely kidding.
To talk about rates. It would be interesting for Alex to talk about rates. Where do you think rates are going to go, Alex?
Long term, as in the next couple of years, let's say, I think they're going to be depressed, and that's good news for the buyers because we just added $2 trillion of debt, and that could only mean rates will be pretty low for quite some time. We saw a spike in the last couple months after the election, after the results from the start of the year. But in the last couple of weeks, we've noticed that the rates had started to go back down. Last I checked, 30-year conforming loan was just under 3%. So that was really welcome news to see because it was not the case for a few months at the beginning of this year. So long term, I think that the rates will stay relatively low, Michael.
Short term, next
Short
2-3 months, yeah.
Short term, I no predictions. I cannot be on the record here, but I don't see any spikes happening in the next few months, Ben. I mean, that's unless something drastic happens again. I don't see anything drastic happening on the rate, up or down.
So it's a great time to buy.
Great time to buy. The only one thing I would add to that is Fannie Freddie recently changed their pricing for investment homes. And I don't know if you guys have noticed this when you're writing up contracts talking to lenders, but all of a sudden the last, I think it was a month or so ago, pricing has gotten significantly worse for conventional financing rates on investment properties. Whereas last year you can finance for flat investment in the mid threes. Now it's in the mid fours. And it's not like anything changed drastically as far as market rates. As you can tell, 30-year fix is still below 3. But Fannie Freddie just don't want that product right now. So beware of that for your investor clients.
Is that just for multi-units, Alex, or it's any second property? Any
Investment,
non-owner
yeah,
occupied?
non-owner occupied condos, single families as well. Now, 15-year fix. So if these investors are really aggressive and they're paying off those loans, 15-year fixed there's a spread of about 1% between 30 and 15 on the investments. So you can still get into the low threes, maybe mid threes on investment 15-year fixed. But 30-year fixed, I don't know why they just don't want it. Maybe they're expecting or they're forecasting a lot of defaults. That's the only thing I can think of.
Mr. Mazek, do you have any thoughts? I know, realtors, but I want to kind of pull it for full circle in the sense of when a deal comes across your desk, what are things that just in the spirit of collaboration, what are things that agents can do to make your life easy in a layup versus shooting a behind the back 3-pointer?
Yeah, well, definitely the hard part is we're having conversations with clients about expectations when it comes to inspection requests. And whether or not in a multiple offer situation, we're going to ask for anything. Like Ben mentioned, in some cases he's getting in front of it, he's talking to the client. In some cases, the client doesn't know. The client, reaches out to me and says, "All right, I want this, this, and this on my inspection report." And we do ask, 3 things. We ask whether or not the property is in a multiple offer situation, where in the context of the asking price did we come in below or above, and how long has the property been on the market? Those are the factors that I use to determine whether or not it's appropriate to ask. But it's such a hard thing. It's such a push and pull because ultimately, the sellers don't expect or essentially are requiring that the buyers don't submit any requests for repairs. However, buyers also are paying top dollar. And if you are paying $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 over asking price, you do want things to be repaired. And you do expect that you're getting a property in move-in condition. So that's a little bit of a push and pull. In terms of, that conversation is probably the most important conversation right now, because sellers are terminating agreements and just going to backup offers if the inspection requests are cumbersome or if the credit request is too high. They are just turning around and asking that backup offer, and that backup offer, knowing the circumstance, always complies and almost always is ready to jump right in and say, "Fine, we're not going to ask for anything. You get us in this deal and we're moving forward." So that conversation is such an important conversation. I know most of the folks on this call in particular, are probably having that conversation, but certainly not, industry wide. Many times it's
Well,
that isn't aware.
No, it's good. It's good to reiterate, obviously, how many times have I heard something and I don't do it, or I do it 20% and then I hear it again and then I do it 35%. So, I mean, it's good there. We're 1 minute out. And so we have, I don't know if everybody knows this. We have a critically acclaimed, I just made up critically acclaimed just because it sounds special and important. We have a critically acclaimed author on this Zoom call. So Rosenblum, you've got 60 to 90 seconds. I will say this, I ordered this for my kids. It's called The Caterpillar and the Butterfly. I will let you sort of explain it, but we're kind of weaving it into the bedtime routine. Sometimes my son wants a superhero book, but then there's things I need to like share Bible stories with them and all that fun stuff. But this is great. So Rosenblum, 60 seconds. The floor is yours, my friend. Share with the audience.
Very kind. It's called The Caterpillar and the Butterfly. I'm returning to my writing roots in my past life, but in short, it's called The Caterpillar and the Butterfly. And the message is that when we take our fear and turn it inside out, it's actually faith. And so there's a caterpillar by the name of fear and a butterfly by the name of faith. And it was picked up and published by Austin Macaulay out of the UK. I mean, they have offices all over the world, but it's thank you so much. It's incredible. And anybody who wants to share it with anybody with kids, we're getting all kinds of great press on it. I did an interview with Greta Moynihan from The View on ABC. Her kid was a fan, and her people contacted us and said, "Hey, do you want to do an interview with her?" And it's very exciting. It has nothing to do with real estate. So anybody in real estate who wants to give a great gift to somebody's kid or tell them, I have to say I appreciate all the lovely brokers, Linda Lavin and so many that have just put it out there on their own Facebook, not concerned about me stealing their clients and just saying, hey, this guy wrote this really great book, or they've tagged our Caterpillar and Butterfly website, which is separate. It has nothing to do with my real estate. It's built by the social media team and the marketing people at the publishing house. So it's pretty great, but it's a true, it's a real story. Think about it. When you take your fear and turn it inside out, it's faith, and everyone needs
it is. Well, I just want to acknowledge, I want to acknowledge, I like when people are doing just great, putting good things in the world, outside of their real estate jobs. So we are 2 minutes over. I want to be respectful of everybody's time. I'm going to cut the live feed right now. Thanks for tuning in, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks for
having
me.
We're not live. Yes, you know the drill. If you want to get on another one of these in a couple months, we shuffle the deck, give different realtors partners on, let me know. Also, if you go to my Facebook page, you know how Facebook works, the more engagement, comments, all that fun stuff. It really doesn't matter to me, but if you want to position yourselves, in the market, share the feed, comment on it, blah, blah, blah. I wish you all a productive rest of your day. If there's anything I can do in my shoes,
Thanks, guys.
to help your business, let me know.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, guys. Very nice to meet you all.
Congratulations. Great chatting with all of you.